Hello and welcome to the third issue of Confused with Julian from Leaf Logic and Mona from 108 Marketizer. We've been talking in the past weeks about marketing and brand. Now, this week, what I think might be useful is if we talk about why social media. Advertising used to be in print, then television was invented and radio, and now we're in social media. So can you first off take us through evolution from print, where I guess it kind of started, through to social media?
Sure. So it all happened really quickly, didn't it? Like if you look at the last 10 years, and that's when everything's kind of caught up. I was just reading the articles and it says the first iPad was introduced in this last decade. And you're like, oh, wow. We use those iPads as though they always existed.
Hold on, there was life before iPad?
I don't know which planet.
I can't believe that.
But that's the truth. So if you look at these things, and that's where it's kind of there's no more a line between your personal lives and how you do business. So people, it's not like technology is just something that they're using at home, or they're using social media only at home, but they're not using it how we work. Actually, social media, technology, or digital is kind of being used seamlessly throughout our day, whether we're at work, whether we're commuting, or whether we're at home, or whether we're interacting. So this concept of change, we all have embraced it, regardless of whether we were running our business in 2000, or we started 100 years ago, or we started 50 years ago, if there's an established firm that started 50 years ago, or whatever. We all embrace technology and social media. Now, the question then comes, when we are all embracing it in our daily lives to do so many other things, why don't we apply the same thinking in our businesses? Why does it then come back when we come to our business, when we're running our business, or when we're thinking about a strategy? Why can we not focus on that aspect and look at it and give the attention that it needs? Previously, print was there. So either it was an agency that used to get involved with these professional firms, and they used to outsource the marketing to them and say, print so many copies of a brochure or an annual report or whatever. And that was good, because I think conversation was very one-sided, and companies or businesses used to talk and spray all that print material out, and then people who were listening, or customers who were listening, businesses didn't have that information about them. So they were kind of just printing in bulk or marketing in bulk and hoping and fingers crossed that it reaches the right. And business was going on. Word of mouth was there, obviously. And you had these, if you had the bigger budgets, the bigger marketing agencies, the bigger outputs, the bigger printing production quantities. Last 10 years, social media came in. Everybody started absorbing onto the social media side of things, and then you from that one to many situation, communication wise, you suddenly went one to one. So if I had a company, I can actually talk to my clients one to one. They can ask me questions about what I do, who do I listen to, who's my mentor, where do I get my inspiration from, what's happening on my business, what's going on. So suddenly this aspect of one-to-one communication came in, and businesses were still thinking print and other forms of communication. They kind of just stopped there and just applying that knowledge or that way of doing things, that processes, to social media. And that's it.
So it's kind of as well something that other people do. I mean, as you say, you were lucky enough in the past to outsource it, and now this stuff is coming directly to you. And as people have said, you now have to manage your own brand. You have to look after your own online presence as an individual, let alone as a business. Social media now combines print and television and radio into one. So here we are doing our very own radio show.
Yeah.
My specialism is producing videos for people, which has changed. It has brought the change in technology as well that the internet has wrought, and the mobile phones and everything else has now moved you from needing a print press a full production studio and a radio station, you can now all do all of that on your desk, in your office, or at home, which has suddenly made all of this stuff affordable, flexible. But the scary part is now, right, well, you now have, there's no reason not to do it. And increasingly, it's what's expected is that you will engage with your customers on those formats.
Absolutely. And I think what has also happened is with this has come transparency. So if you are on social media, no longer is there a wall, whether that's that time difference or the difference between what you produce and then it's printed and sent out in the market a month or two later. There's no longer that kind of a time gap that we're looking at. Information is available at your fingertips. Yeah, you're literally logging on and having a look at what's going on. So these firms have, with that comes transparency. So with these firms or that individuals who are running within it, they are not only running, they're actually responsible for their brands. They really have to be aware of it at any given point in time when they're interacting, whether that be on social media or at an event or at in their boardroom, that they are responsible for that brand. So it's not just how you look good on paper and you print out a really glossy annual report or magazine once a quarter. It's no longer that. Your impression is your business profession reputation is not based just on what you produce. It's actually who you are, what you do, how you go about doing that business, and what value do you bring to your clients. So that individual and that business is responsible for that brand. It's no longer saying outsourcing it and saying, you know what, take care of this. We're doing 4 print sessions a year. That's good. Tick box, done.
What information now should you be putting out? Because by all accounts on social media, people are quite resistant to advertising and advertorial.
Yeah. And advertorial is the first thing to go out the door in social media. There's no space left for advertising or just print adverts. So in 2020, if you are running a business and you're still using the print and TV mindset to run your marketing campaigns, that's a big no-no. There's something seriously wrong. And as a business, you need to change and rethink. So what should you be doing as a modern business? So one thing here, before anybody starts thinking about it, social media comes with its own set of rules. So if you want to be successful on social media as a business or as a professional firm, you really need to play the game with the new set of rules. So now we look at what's changed. The question is, what should you be sharing if it's no longer the quarterly magazine? What do you share with? So the first thing starts with looking at the goal and the vision of your business, of your brand. Why do you exist? And surprisingly, the larger the firm, the more confusion there is between the vision and the strategy, even though that vision and strategy or mission will be pasted everywhere on their websites and on their walls and in their books and in their team sessions. Nobody has a clear understanding within the organization of what that vision and mission means. And it's not important. It's important to understand that vision and mission not only internally, but what does it mean for your customers? Like, we can have all the great words in there, but what are we solving?
I love mission statements. They're one of my favorite things, because you're quite right, nobody understands what they actually mean, but they're great. And everyone says how important they are, and they still don't know what it means. And even if you ask the people that came up with it, they still aren't clear as to what it actually means.
Yeah, exactly right. So that's where the first step comes. There is, if you have a vision and mission in your company or in your professional firm, good, look at it, understand what it means. Once you've understood it, please share that understanding within your team. Let everyone understand, regardless whether they are in IT or they're in business development or they run events or they're your marketers or they're your business partners, stakeholders, whoever. Make sure they all understand what that vision and mission means. And if there is any kind of confusion, just work on it until the whole professional firm comes onto the understanding that, okay, this is who we are and this is what we stand for. Once you have that understanding really clear, then you move on to understanding the strengths within your business and the different departments that you've got. So you need to share that information really well. So what kind of content on social media? First thing on social media is what you say is what you do, is who you are. So you cannot just say something else on social media and try and run your business in a different way behind closed doors and then pretend to be something else as in that social profile. So all these three things have to be aligned, and for that to be really aligned, you need to be actually aligned not only from top to bottom but even seamlessly throughout your teams. And that's when sharing comes, information.
Okay, so you're back to information, but what do you mean by, so when you mean aligned, do you mean that everyone is singing from the same hymn sheet and they all understand the same message? But do you think, though, that because of the sort of traditional, there's a lot of silos in businesses where, this is my job, this is what I do. Do you think there needs to be a change in, we've talked about before how marketing is in a different room and you never cross the threshold of marketing because that's a dark art and you don't know what they do. You don't want to find out. So they're sort of approached from a distance. You prod them a bit every so often. Then what happens is if you're not careful, they come out and ask you for something. Within this new paradigm of marketing, of social media, basically the underlying message is, well, you can't treat it as separate any longer. Everybody in an organization has to be aware of the social media, your social media. What are you doing? How are you broadcasting what you're doing for the business, for yourself? And so presumably you have to think 24/7, what am I doing? How does this help promote the business? It's a change in mindset.
It is. And that's why those silos have to kind of dissolve into this whole organization thinking. And that whole organization thinking happens when everybody is clear about what the service is. Not only what the service is, what role do they play, whether they're in HR, whether they're in customer service, whether they're at the front answering calls or whatever that is. Each department, each individual needs to be really clear in the role that they play within the marketing or within the brand, promoting the brand as a whole. So once that is there, that flow of information is where I've seen most professional firms struggle with, because you add the complexities of day-to-day tasks and activities. Everybody's kind of running on deadlines and making sure that projects are getting done and completed. From that, once the projects are completed, how do you actually translate what you've achieved in that project and send it to your marketing or give it to your marketing person? If the marketing person's not aware of what project it was, not only just the name and the location of the project, but what it actually meant. Why did we do that project? How did it change? What value did it bring to the overall business? What was this initial talk or brief about? How did both the businesses benefit out of working together?
Yes.
So once that information, that essence is not drawn or talked about in a boardroom or in a meeting room, that information is just gone because we're running to the next project now. So marketing or brand relies heavily on this kind of information, and that's not very easy. Sometimes people within the business are so used to looking at it the same way because they have been, especially within that field of expertise, doing the business in that way. So they are not able to step back and look at it and say, oh, why did we do this project? How did it benefit? How did it change? So, for example, in property, how did it change the landscape of a city, or what did it add to the urban landscape of that place? There's just no time to think about it. And that's why to complete this strategy about social media, about content and what you promote, you sometimes have to take a step back at your business and what you're doing and look at it, at the difference your work is making in the world out there.
Yeah, because it's
that's the content. That's not advertising, that's the content.
Indeed, and it's very often, it's like getting blood out of a stone sometimes with professionals, because what they deal with is intangibles very often. And I've asked my clients, okay, guys, well, how much money did that save the client? Oh, I don't know. We don't know what they did with it. Well, okay, what would you look at and think, well, they could do so and so with it, and what benefit would that bring them? Oh, well, probably save them $500,000. Right. Okay, well, if you've just potentially saved them $500,000, you've just potentially saved them $500,000.
Yeah.
Well, yes. And that's where thinking differently about it, so you can actually say, and as I said to them, it is far more interesting if you say to your clients, we've just potentially saved you $500,000, than here is the report. Now, you don't have to shove that down somebody's throat, but it is actually worth bringing it to their attention that you've saved them $500,000. It's just a difference in mindset, because again, as we've mentioned before, when you are asking people to pay your invoice, you have to explain to people what value you've brought to them, and the professions don't do that. They just think you should know. And yet it's the most obvious thing. I'm happy to pay 50,000 if you've saved me $500,000. Here's my money. The difficulty is they go, can I have 50,000? Okay, what for? Just logic.
And it's so interesting. So I've seen this with clients, with my clients, when I kind of walk in there, that information is already there. They all have it. So when I go in there, it's about asking a different set of questions. It's not about just looking at it from the way those business partners have looked at their business for so long. It's just going in there, having that external mindset. And I go in there, and I've never had an issue with getting that information. It was just they were asking the same questions over and over again. So it's not about advertising on social media. It's about, why do you do this? The answer to the question why is so, it gets them thinking, oh, why did we do this? And it's a kind of a process of really something that they understand if you do it once or twice, and they're able to kind of get onto the goal of understanding that this is how we need to look at our own business in a new way. It's about asking questions that have never been asked before, but asking questions that bring out the value. And that content, and that becomes the new information that can then be shared on social media, because suddenly you're making a difference. And another thing to add there is, you cannot expect just IT, because previously you used to outsource it to a marketing agency or marketing team. Now professional firms do that very common mistake of giving that responsibility solely to IT, because it's got technology as an under platform. It's IT's responsibility to look at that. That's the biggest mistake, because IT is the tool. Technology is the tool to get you there on social media, but that doesn't mean it's the responsibility just of one department or that specialty. It needs to be looked at holistically, rather than just keep handing it over to one department and saying, can you please run the social media because it runs on the web. That's not the way to do it.
No.
And also, a word of warning here, it really depends on how well established your marketing team is within your business and who is leading it. Do they have that right skill set? And if they do, that's when they are more closer to the clients and the needs of their clients. But if that's not the case, then the business partners really need to think and understand whether they need external experts to come in and have a look at it and help them set up that foundation. So that thinking and that mindset and that asking the right questions is really important. And it always, with all my clients, I've always found that they found it really helpful of having someone externally come into the business and look at it from a distance and say, you don't change the way you work, you change how you think about your work.
Yes, exactly.
So you're still producing the same outputs, you're still doing the same work, but you're changing how you present it and how you think about it and what value it is bringing. And that's when the change happens.
Absolutely. Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much again, Mona. That's the end of this podcast. Listen in to the next one, the next thrilling episode of ConFuzed.
Thank you. Bye.